Well, let's talk to Mohammed Shafiq, who's director of the Lancashire-based Muslim youth group Ramadan Foundation. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Rachel.
There is obviously agreement that any man who commits a sexual crime on a young girl or a young boy is guilty of something truly, truly dreadful. Do you agree with Jack Straw that there is something that culturally within the Pakistani community that means that Pakistani men are proportionately more likely, even though we are talking about a tiny minority, to be involved in this sort of crime?
Well, I think Jack Straw is kind of right. I've been saying this for the past 2 years, that there is a perception amongst these young criminal gangs that white girls are less valuable, have less morals than their own daughters and sisters. And the second most important thing is one of the reasons why they don't choose Muslim girls or Pakistani girls, for that matter, is because they don't want a fallback in the community. So if they were to pick a Muslim girl or an Asian girl, there would be a huge backlash against the individual and their families. And therefore that would cause a lot of conflict.
Why would there not be that same backlash if the crime was perpetrated against a white girl?
That's a sad reality, because the white community is not kind of linked into the Pakistani community. So I do share Jack Straw's concern about the rising worry of this, but I would actually caution what is actually being said. I think to suggest that this is somehow ingrained within young Pakistani men is not true, and to suggest that this is somehow endemic, as some commentators have been suggesting over the weekend, is also false. I recognise the responsibility our community has to deal with this issue. It's vile and evil men. I've taken a stance on this because I believe that you've got to stand up for these girls. You've got to work to protect them, because there is no difference between the girls and the white girls.
Yeah.
And my daughters. I'm a father of 3 beautiful girls, and I see the girls that have been driven into this crime as my own daughters, and that's why I'm taking a stance at some risk at times to my own life and the work that I do.
Why is your own life at risk? Because it's regarded as being so controversial within your own community that you come out and say these things?
Well, what I would say is, 2 years ago when I featured in the BBC Panorama programme on this very same issue, people felt that I was doing the work of the BNP, they felt I was making it up. There was no statistics, there was no visual evidence that this was going on. Now, 2 years on, we've seen 65 convictions, of which 53 are British Pakistani men, and so it's become a reality for people. People are seeing it on their news bulletins, as we saw yesterday in the Derby. So actually, 2 years on, I'm talking, when I say I've been some threat, I meant when I first started speaking up on this issue. But thankfully, over the past few days, I've received a lot of support from the community, and a lot of people are finding what Jack Straw has said.
Let's be clear. As Jack Straw himself said, 80% of those convicted of sex offences in this country come from the white community. This is certainly not solely a problem within the Pakistani community. There's also another issue here, in that it tends to be young white women and some young boys as well, from very poor, very deprived areas, who are vulnerable here. So a number of people have been pointing out this morning there is a responsibility, of course, within the Pakistani community to try and address the sorts of attitudes that seem to foster and support these awful crimes. At the same time, there perhaps also needs to be a look within white communities that their children are better protected, that they are not so vulnerable to these sorts of crimes.
I think you're absolutely right. I think there needs to be a grassroots campaign amongst young white teenager girls, teaching them the danger of these sort of crimes and the impact these have on them. And also, there's going to be some work within the Muslim community, Pakistani community, about respecting white teenagers as much as they would respect their own. That's what my faith teaches me. And how
do you do that? How do you go out and teach that sort of respect and that care?
Well, I think partly through the mosque and community centres that operate in our community. I think that is one way forward. Can I just say that there is a very successful project going on in Holland where predominantly the men convicted there are of Moroccan origin, and it's worked very successfully. And certainly, I'm hoping to travel to Holland at some stage in the future to go and learn lessons from that. But
Okay.
I don't underestimate that we've all got a responsibility to tackle this issue in a responsible and respectful way.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts. Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation.